We're live, you guys. Anybody get a notification?
Well, I'm on here on my device that I'm using to go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, welcome to the state of the church. First, actually, I want to take that back. The state of the church is going to be a series, you all. This will be part one of the state of the church series, and we will be having different guests on weekly. And so, this is our first official meeting. And so our first official dialogue and conversation. So yeah, that's how we're gonna start it. So if my fellow panelists can go ahead and introduce themselves.
Do you want to give a? We going to do just straight off starting, or you want to give a minute to people to come
Well,
in?
you can wait, but you have, I mean, I don't know what you want to wait for.
All right. Well, as you can see on the screen, my name is Erica Vinegar, and I feel like I have a good. Let me see. How can you say it? I feel like I have a good insight on this topic, being the fact that I have been into the church since I can remember. Like I was bored in the church. You know, some people join in, but I was bored in.
Mhm.
You see how I did that there? Anyway, I think this will be interesting. That's all I have to say.
And obviously, you can see my name is Sean Buffington. And just piggybacking on what Erica said, I feel like I can bring some input to this. I worked in um, the ministry, born in the ministry, worked in youth ministry, social media ministry, if that's what you want to call it now. Um, so I think that this conversation is going to be very, very awakening for some people, and I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. That's great. And Sean is from the Los Angeles region of California, which is Southern California. I am from Northern California, up here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and Erica Vinegar is out there in Arizona.
Hey
Wow.
Z,
Arizona, what is that considered? The
I
the
don't know.
desert.
I really don't know what region. Honestly, don't ask me.
That's all y'all.
So let me start off by saying, well, let me ask y'all this. So a lot of people, well, I had one person ask me, like, what does the state of the church conversation going to consist of, right? And the state of the church conversation isn't going to be one topic and then um it's not going to be just one topic. Like I want the state of the church conversation to be honestly like wide range, like whether it be something that helps the church or things that are like bad about well, not bad, but something that things that can be beneficial, that can be helped, or any of the sort. I want to start off by saying we just went through a pandemic, or we're going through a pandemic actually. Do you feel as though, go ahead, Erica.
Not to interject or like mess up your flow of how you want to run this, but do you feel like we kind of said we were born into this, but do you really feel like we have a say in the state of the church?
You too? Or
Like us, like
just okay.
maybe just us in dialogue. I would say in the perspective of someone that's not maybe really 100% committed, but we are active in the church. Do you think people will actually listen to our opinion or accept it?
I mean,
That
honestly,
might be a different topic if
well, I answer. I think that because I mean, I would go off of years and like experiences at the church to see if if some people opinions are valid, But I feel like if you're in the church, you have an opinion whether it's something to get better in the church or you want to see different in the church. So I think everybody's opinion is valid as long as you go to church, I guess, right? Um, so yeah, as you guys know, we're going through a pandemic, and the whole year of 2020 was crazy. We lost major leaders in the Church of God in Christ, and not even in the Church of God in Christ, like your loved ones and whatever the case may be. But do you feel as though the pandemic has caused the church to shift in a different direction? And if that's the case, was it a good direction or a bad direction?
John.
I think that it depends on the church.
Uh-huh.
And your resources that you have available. Like we kind of discussed last night, if you are a part of a church with less than 50 members, you're really pressed right now, and that's, I mean, it's okay, but the first step to anything is honesty. So if your leader, and especially if you have 50 members or less and your pastor is 50 plus, you lack some of the resources that a mega church, a TD Jakes, a Joel Osteen, you lack some of those resources. So I think that the church is in a dire state. I think that they're trying to figure out, will I survive and how can I survive? But we also have to look at the point where you're not competing with another ministry trying to keep up with the ministry. Move at your pace. Move at what you can do. There's different things that you can do to sustain your membership. The Zoom calls are working for some churches. Conference calls are working for some churches. Facebook Lives are working for some churches. But then you have some ministries that are at a place where it's only old people. So they're trying to figure out, how do I, after all these people, I don't want to say it, but when these people die, will there be a ministry left? When these people pass on, what's left, and how can I get younger people, or how can I reach out to younger people to get them the part? Because really the reality is, they always said, well, the youth are the church of the now.
Right.
It's real now, because you now need us and you need the help. So, and you don't have the money to outsource. So now you're looking for the in-source from the knowledge that we have that can help grow your ministry.
Erica?
I'm gonna straight off the bat. Yes, the pandemic has caused a shift in the church, and like he said, a lot of churches' resources or finances wasn't prepared for this type of shift or this type of what happened incident that happened. So some churches had to learn to grow. Some churches are really stagnated. Like they don't have services. It's hard for them to connect with their members. So even though when people associate shift with church, they probably think of like a spiritual shift, like a higher worship type shift. But this type of shift, yeah, it definitely happened, and you got to jump in it. Like some people want to try to stick with the traditional meeting and coming together, but you can't come together right now. So you go end up losing your members if you can't stay connected with them. And the way you stay connected is stepping out a little bit outside your box, having online services, like you said, meeting on Zoom, conference calls, stuff like that. So the church gotta catch up with the times, and that's not just to say the Church of God in Christ necessarily, but I just feel like churches in general, if that makes sense. But
Well, look, now that we've realized that there was a major shift in the church in 2020, where do we see the churches going in 2021? Because we cannot go into 2021 the way we went from 19 to 20.
How's that?
Unprepared. Basically, I almost think about, let's say, especially Black families. A lot of Black families are not prepared for a major earthquake, right? If something happens, your house going down, and we're gonna have to try to figure out where we stand, how we evacuate. Do you have a flashlight? Do you have, and I think that's what happened. A major, and I'm not trying to sound deep, but it's on me. So a major like spiritual earthquake happened in 2020, and a lot
Wow.
of churches tumbled. They were not prepared for social media. They don't know anything about, actually, they call social media the devil, so now you got to use the devil. So a lot of the churches tumbled because they were not prepared for a social shift, which is a social shift. Your membership can no longer come to church, and most of them, speaking from an older church standpoint, they want to come to church, but they have conditions that stop them from coming, and they're scared of the virus and whatnot. So now you, as a pastor, especially being an older pastor, has to figure out, how can I accommodate these people? And
Right.
I was not prepared for the move, or I wasn't prepared for the shift. So going into 2021, it should have been a wake-up call for a lot of ministries to say, look, we are really in a social shift, because right now, there was a Jamal Bryant said something that always is going to be with me. He said the Black church is always 10 years behind. So if we are 10 years behind, and you trying to catch up, your church barely starting Facebook, y'all
Right.
barely starting a Facebook page, Facebook is going to get old a year from now, and there's going to be a new platform that you got to jump on, and you don't even know how to work a Facebook page. So it's a real social shift. So I think that it's all about being socially aware, and it's not a sin to be socially aware. It's not the devil to be socially aware.
Right.
Interact with your young people, interact with your young adults, and try to figure out what's new, what's fresh. And if you don't have the ability to do it, put somebody over it that can take your ministry to the next place.
Someone has a question, and from the preview, I see,
Child.
I can't read it all, so I won't bring it on the screen. Sean, could you read it? I mean, could you?
Okay, I'll read it, but the person says, I have a question, and no disrespect at all. Why is the majority of people that have something to say about the church over, I'm not going to curse, but over the bad word, wait, or gay? I'm not understanding the question.
So I'm not understanding the question. I mean, I feel as though they're trying to no, okay. Let's move
Ignore
on.
that question.
Get your question and your concern. We're going to move forward. We often see, listen, we often see the Black church really trying to stick to our tradition and our Black culture, right? How do we, because I believe now it's not, I mean, everywhere, I mean, where you see in any ministry, you see different cultures now. It's not just, oh, I go to a Black church, or I go to a white church, I go to a Latino church, X, Y, Z. You see everybody's cultures being intertwined now with worship at different churches, right? How do I feel as though the Black church we're kind of late when it comes to making our ministries multicultural. How do we make our churches multicultural but still not lose our Black traditions or the Black culture in our church? Because I think a lot of members always feel like, oh, well, if we get these different types of members, we'll have to either tone down our preaching, we'll have to change our songs, we'll have to do different activities. That's not what we're used to. But how do we make it easier, or what do we tell members that are uncomfortable about changing to a multicultural church? Erica?
That's a good question. Like, we kind of like, even though we talked about this last night, like the way it's coming to me is like I hear something different and I have a different way of feeling about it, because I feel like if you begin to like teach people about building a relationship with God, then all the traditions and the way of doing stuff will fall in place, and it doesn't really have to be pertaining to what you knew growing up
Right.
or the type of denomination that you're in, because there's many denominations outside of Kojic. You got Apostolic, you got Church of God, and I don't know any other ones,
Yeah.
but you have a lot. But I feel like people have to start building a relationship, because if you're just trying to go after tradition, making sure you wear the right thing, making sure you act the right way, then you get lost in that, and then you don't even know if you come to church for God or for your background, your tradition, or whatever. So I
Right.
feel like if you teach them, if you, of course, it's going to take a good little time for people to want to change and adapt to change. But I think it needs to happen. I don't know if that's the question, but I think the Black church need to start incorporating more than sticking to tradition. That's on me.
Mm, that's a good point, Pinky. That God is showing everybody when He gets ready to shut it down, He will shut it down. And always remember, the church is just a building. That, I think, I'm going to talk on that just a little bit, and I'll go back to the original question. But I think so many people was in shambles when they could not go to the church. And a lot of people was just like, I mean, then you were realizing like your relationship with God outside of church is not strong at all, right?
Period.
I mean, like, that means that you don't do anything. I mean, you don't worship God anyway outside of church. If you was really like, oh my gosh, the church closed down, what are we gonna do now, right?
Yeah.
It also, I think it also took a toll on the people that had titles in our church, right? They now you really don't see people. I mean, now you don't address people as this is so of the
That's
church.
good.
You know what I mean? Like it's not now. It's not about, oh well, I have this title in the church, so I get to walk through the church building like this, because you're not in the building no more. So how are you walking now, right?
Mhm.
How are you walking now? Let me take that away. But do y'all have anything to say about that? How people, I mean, you know, how the church is just a building. Like you should be able to have church outside of that.
I mean, I heard everybody was, that was like people message, a lot of preachers message when that happened.
Mhm.
We are the building. We not, or the church is not the building. You the building. The church is in you. Something. I'm like, okay, but some people, but some people needed that. Like, if they wasn't all the way in the relationship with God, like some people use church as that type of connection to God. And when
Mhm.
they lost it, it was like they lost, maybe they lost the Lord. And it forced people to, like you said, reevaluate their relationship. And they had to, maybe they had to pray more, maybe they had to study. But
Mhm.
that's on them if they didn't want to do it.
Because they could not rely on,
The church.
I think a lot of people, not even just the church, a lot of people relied on their pastors to connect their relationship with God, right? I mean, you would often go to the pastor, oh pastor, I need a word, please. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and they would be anticipating that word to get them through, but like sometimes you got to get your own stuff through with whether it's your prayer or whether it's your studying and whether it's you tapping in and reading your word, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess that's right.
I mean, it goes either way. The old churches, in parentheses, old preachers will always just be the Black typical church because of how they teach and they don't want to change. Now the new church pastors are more open to things which bring in different types of people.
Now, so how do we work on those? Like, say, like Sean said, his pastor is pretty up there age. Like, if I'm at a church and I love my pastor and he's not moving with the times, is that supposed to force me to move churches, Or am I supposed to go talk to that pastor? And how's that leaving some young people or young adults in that type of situation?
Right. But you also don't want to be as a church hopper. So how do you handle that? Sean, how would you handle that if your church isn't shifting the way you want it to go, or whether if you wanted your church to move in this direction, but you have a leader that's a little bit hesitant and not what they're used to? How do you approach
Well, I would question their
Uh-oh.
pause. I think that the church is to edify. The church is to grow. The church is not supposed to stay the same.
Right.
So my question is, are we moving out of the instructions of God, or are we moving out of religion? So you
Right.
got most leaders that are so caught up in tradition and religion that the program has to run this way. You can't switch this. This is how I like it. Offering is going to come before the preacher. Like, old church that really loves the Lord, on the back of their program, it would say this program is subject to change by the moving of the Holy Ghost. But you don't see that anymore. We are timed. The service is an hour. The preacher's going to get up. He's going to do what he's going to do. I know when offering is. I know when to come after praise and worship, because I don't want to deal with the welcome. People understand religion. But I think I would question the motive of my leader. And it's sad to say that, but if you are not trying to progress, if you are not trying to move, it's not going to, your church is just stagnant. It's going to be stuck. And I don't want to be a part of nothing stuck. So I would leave.
Bottom line,
Period.
leave or would you stay? Can I shift this conversation a little bit, you guys? Okay.
Where are you going?
Okay. I want to go to a place of thinking, right? And nobody should be offended by any conversation that we have, because I feel like we can just talk, you guys. How much does the church, how much should, or how much does the church allow before it becomes
a show?
How much does the church allow before it becomes entertainment and not authentic worship?
Come on, authentic worship.
Listen, that is a question that I want 26 of our viewers to put down. Like, when does it cross the line to become entertainment, or this is a production, or this is a show that we're putting on now? We talked last night, a lot of pre-recordings often feel like it's a show now. Like, you come to the pre-recording for your service, because you can't do indoor full worship like we used to. So we'll select a couple members to come to pre-recording, right? And you'll have everything timed, like Sean just said. You only do 2 songs. You don't even think about venturing off until another song that come in your head. Like, no, we need to go over the songs that we rehearsed, right? You can't just flow off no more. It's a show now, right? So how do we, where is the line now? Right? Where's the line?
I think it's just,
where's the line and what should or should not be allowed?
I think somebody, oh snap, I got what? I'll say that later.
This conversation is growing, y'all. These people actually joining.
The thing about it, I feel it's a personal. I think somebody said that last night. Personally, I feel like if I have a relationship with God, I know that He'll show me what's real and what's fake.
Right.
So if I'm coming to church and I just see anybody up there doing whatever they want, as far as, that's another conversation. I was going to say, as far as me knowing how they lived the night before, and then they up here trying to take someone in, and I'm like, I don't know if you really just doing this because you know how to, or is if this really an anointing or whatever. But I honestly feel personally, if my relationship or if your relationship is built and true, God will show you if it's real or fake.
Sean.
I agree. I don't even gotta add nothing to that. If it's real or fake. Yep.
And that's needless to say.
Really, Marty? Because you know I play better than Erica, so you wrong for that. But I'm not even going. That's not the conversation at hand.
I think like people come to like lights and stuff. It attracts people. It do attract people. That's why you see a lot of church get more theatric. People come where it's like stuff is A1. Like if you have a good sound system, you got a good band, and this is even with your production now being live streamed and on social media. If you can, people can hear clearly, see clearly, that's going to get them involved. So of course it's going to take a certain amount of production to be in the service, but you don't want it to be too flashy where it's overpowering what's important.
Right.
So if people don't leave different, then your whole service was just for show. Nothing really took place. And that's just that on that.
Evan says when the service is built around a personality.
That's true too. If you're whoever the leader is or whoever the if whoever the leader is or whoever up in front, and if it's about, it's about them and what they doing and them being seen, then it's not authentic. That's on them. Straight pocket all the time. That's all these drummers out there, all those flashy tricks and moves, all that. It's all about the pocket. If you can stay in the pocket, you can play with the best of them. Period. And that's me, pocket all day.
and that's period. But look, I told y'all to ask me some questions so I wouldn't have to keep carrying it. What do you feel? But look, I asked what is too much? Like, how do you feel like some things can do you feel like some things can be that you can be set down for?
They did used to thank you. They used to do that. They used to sit people down. Like you couldn't just do whatever you wanted. That's on. They don't do that no more. That's why, and it just anything and everything goes on in the church. They are alive for that.
Is it? I mean, now like it's. I mean, I've never been set down, and I wasn't born in the era of where you would sit down if something wasn't right. Like I guess they stopped that before I was old enough, right? So like, is that still okay? Because I know that a lot of people. Hey, Jessica. I know a lot of people. You really can't tell nobody what to do, right?
Especially not y'all young kids. Y'all definitely don't listen.
I listen a little bit.
No, like before, like you couldn't sing in a choir, you couldn't be a musician, you could not do none of that if you didn't have a real relationship. Like you'll get for real. That's how it was, and maybe that's why the church is not where it is now.
Well, I think the problem also is the lack of integrity. So what happens is your pastor is now afraid to sit you down because you threaten to leave the church. Right. And if you leave the church, then there's no church. And that's the sad part, that a lot of these churches are surviving off of one or two people that kind of can just do what they want to do and know that they can do what they want to do, because if I leave, I'm your resource.
Wow.
And that's because the church is okay with that. Most people are okay with depending on just two people. So that's when I question the leadership. Well, are you okay with losing those two good people and still protecting the ministry? And go out and redevelop people. Go find some people that are are integral people. If that's what your ministry is trying to, show off, or your mission statement is upholding integrity, then do that. But don't compromise for those two people that are going to act ignorant every Sunday and collect a check. It's a job, and go home and do the same thing over and over again. So I think that it's not even the people. I think it's the leader's fault.
Mm-hmm. So Joseph says the sitting down isn't okay, but the getting up isn't okay either.
Mm.
You're kind of saying it falls back on the person. Like, they should feel as though they should not get up and do certain things. Okay. So
Yeah, I know where you going with that. Like your my personal conviction wouldn't allow me to get up and do anything in front of the church if I know I wasn't doing right the day before, and that's just me. But other people, they don't have that type of conviction, I don't think.
And I understand Joseph's statement: the sitting down isn't okay, but the getting up is like that falls on personal conviction. Like, if I'm a pastor, first of all, I'm a pastor, but I'm a human first. So therefore, I make several mistakes. The only problem is between me and a regular member is I still got to lead the church. Right. So there's nobody telling me to sit down. So who am I to tell you to sit down when I'm secretly making the same mistakes as you?
Wow.
Now that's your personal conviction. That's, if you feel like you got to sit down, you got to sit down, because I'm still leading the church and I still got to lead the church. So it's a question between your spirituality and your humanity. And it's a big versus.
Matthew says the old saints used to say, if you mess up in the front yard, then you correct it in the front. Has to be addressed in the front of the church. If you mess up in the backyard, you correct it there, meaning go to them personally.
Like your mom used to say, you act up in front of people, you show out in front of people, I'm gonna show out with you. You get a whooping right. And that's how they used to do, but people not having it no more. You say something to somebody, oh, your shoe untied, they'll leave the church. That's how people are now. So
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, it's just something people have to deal with, or that's like a big issue, is being afraid of like living right, or like telling people, then they get attitude, get offended, and then they want to leave, and then you have this big old thing. But
wait, you guys, is it how hard? I mean, as young people are growing up, why is it that I think it's often hard that we have to be so committed and so saved at a young age, but often the older people forget at our age, they were doing the same thing, if not worse. But are they, when they're telling us to get saved, are they trying to help us so that we won't go through the same mistakes that they did? Or is it just like they're trying to be the critics that they are? What do you think?
Critics.
And that's what I was going to see.
Of course they'll say they're trying to help you. I've been there before. I know how it was. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I have. They say that like it just roll off their tongue. They even know what's gonna say. It just come out. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I have. But I think it's true. But then again, like, they need to let people live.
Right.
And they gonna have their day. So
I agree. I mean, some stuff is a preventative, like Erica said, like, I've been where you are, so I'm gonna warn you, but I'm not gonna shove the Bible down your throat. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because I was there. So yeah, I think that people should have their own experiences, whatever that is for you, and however you do it. But at the end of the day, that's not gonna stop me from encouraging you. So it's a difference from encouraging me and trying to give me damnation. Like, you going to hell, you need to get your life right. So, encourage
that's
me.
a good.
If that's okay.
That's definitely a good point. It's how you say it to people. Because I feel like there's certain people I listen to, and they're telling me, you need to do it this way, that way. But it's not like, I'm not gonna answer the phone when they call, because I know all they're gonna tell me is I'm doing wrong. But the way they encourage you, you want to like talk to them, you listen to them, and you like listening to what, like, you really listening to what they say. So it's definitely about how they deliver it to you. Yeah, that's what you thinking.
What to
What I
say,
say?
Deshaun?
Yeah, that sitting folk down thing is hard one, to be honest. At the end of the day, it's about your relationship with God. Once God has forgiven you, you're forgiven. Now, once you get forgiven, are you still doing that thing still? Because I don't know if that's.
Right. Did
Are
Deshaun
are you
freeze?
freeze? Are you frozen? I'm like,
Hello?
oh snap!
We
I
was
was like,
talking to you and you wasn't even saying nothing.
right? He's like,
It wasn't. I don't know what happened, you guys. I
you
don't.
froze.
I don't know. And people are so easily offended. Even if you were to come to them in love, that doesn't even matter.
Mm,
That's honestly, let's be completely honest. That's true.
yeah,
People,
some people be on edge,
you can't say
calm
nothing
down,
to them. Like, calm down.
geez.
Like, take a chill pill. I think, um, but I think that I think it comes from. I don't know. It can come from anywhere. Like, it can come from what your teaching is at home. I mean, like, if your parents let you get away with a lot of things, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for somebody else outside of your mom and dad to tell you what to do. So that conversation is kind of never ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you.
One thing about us is
Thank you. Yeah. Because
real.
some people think there is a lot of people. I don't know how we got on relationships, but there is a lot of people that think like they can ask for forgiveness and they're good. They can just continue to do whatever they want to do. But at the end of the day,
You
someone
can't.
say at the end of the day go in. But no, at the end of the day, you gonna have to give a count. So that's all y'all. I don't want to try to get too deep.
Talk your talk, Erica.
Well, all I'm saying is churches, certain denomination churches, gonna have to start getting more progressive. Like
Right.
y'all can't keep singing "God is a good God" every Sunday. Y'all gotta intertwine a couple of worship songs. If you want to put a little churchy feel on the worship song, then maybe. But you can't get up there and do call response every Sunday. And y'all praise breaks can't be 20, 30 minutes. That's all. They can't do that when you try to, if you're trying to go multicultural or you try to keep people interested. And now on social media, online, they're definitely going to click off. You scroll over, let me see what the next church is doing. So you got to be able to, I don't know if captivate is the right word, but it has to be something authentically there. But at the same time, um, a good production is going to go a long way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. How do leaders go about attracting a certain audience at their churches, right? I mean, like I know like some people need their departments to grow. How do you go about growing a department?
I'm not fit to be the only one talking.
I was talking. I think growing. I mean, people beget people, right? So people go get people. So it's
Right.
all about who you have available at your service and to outreach. Um,
Is it I always think I want to go to a church where they show other departments in your face, right? Like you wouldn't go to if you were looking for a youthful church, you wouldn't go to a church where they only show their older members, right?
right.
So is it all about showing the different types of ministries or departments you have at your church? Showcasing them to say the least?
Well, honestly, I think it's personal. I don't know. I'll have to say, from my experience, I just moved to Arizona. Literally, it'll be a year in February. In the January, I moved out here. I visited three churches, two churches only on Sundays. I visited one church, someone that moved from California. I visited their church. It was a nice church. They had a great crowd. Um, and you could tell the crowd was a little older. They had, people who had kids or whatever like that. So I didn't really see that many people in my age group. Maybe the musicians, but yeah, the pastor seemed maybe he was not old, but anyway, I decided not to go back to that church. So I visited another church, and it was more youthful, of course. It was a little more up to date, like as far as how it appeared, like the sanctuary. That's the church, the sanctuary. But anyway, and then you had the people that was doing praise and worship were young. They were doing like more youthful, not youthful songs, but more integrated songs. Plus, they was doing your typical Kojic or let me see, churchy stuff. So that drawed me there, because you see yourself being around, like the people doing praise and worship. I think there was some that was doing the media was pretty young. The musicians was definitely young, and that atmosphere drew me to that. So of course you want to see yourself being used. Now I don't. That's why I'm gonna stop there. If you want to see yourself being used, I'm not fit to bring no other examples in.
Other examples.
Nope. That's what
Wait, I think that, like Erica said, you really look at to see where you fit in the ministry.
Right.
Like if I go to an older church, I'm trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do here? Most people, most millennials, are anointed and gifted, so they're trying to find a church, not just the church to attend, but a church where they can feel like they can participate, where they can grow.
Right,
So
right, right.
they're not looking to go to a 60, 70-year-old, base membership church. So if I'm
Right.
going to a smaller church, even if it's a smaller church with more young people, and they can identify with me and I can have an actual conversation with them and they get it, then of course I'm going to join that church. So it's all about finding where you fit, I think, in this generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
If
that's
I
what you
want
could.
to go to a church that just have nothing but praise breaks, that's where I'm gonna go.
Mm,
But if I want to go to a church that, has a youth choir, they have youth ministry, they have a young adult ministry, I feel like I can, they have a Bible study with groups and different things. Like if that's what I'm looking for, then I'm going to find that.
right, and that's for um like people. I feel like that's more so for people that's coming into the church.
Mm-hmm.
So like I grew up at our church. That's the only church I've really been a member of before I left just past February. Is that church which still has it's been there for 80 years. So it's a pretty it's it's diverse. Like we have some young, we have old, but majority they're older saints and they're definitely traditional. So I wouldn't want to leave there to go find a more youthful church. I feel like me being a youth or being younger, I would want to try to bring diversity to that church. But I feel like it's harder for someone that's just definitely coming in. Like if I'm like, oh, I just wanted to visit different churches, if that makes sense. I think.
And that's the burden of church babies. Like
Mm,
when you were
Mm,
born in the church, then that's the same thing I feel like. You feel obligated to
yeah.
shift the church, like, and it become I mean, if you have the help, but unlike most ministries, sometimes it's just one or two of you guys,
Oh yeah.
and sometimes it's just one of you. So now you feel burdened by the obligation to shift the paradigm of your church. Like, oh my God, I gotta go get my friends to come here to support the ministry, or I gotta do
mm,
ministry look young so I can attract. And then the older saints is looking at you like, yes, you know so many people. You should what you think about this? And you're excited, like you're honored that they're asking you, but it's also a burden, like, oh, my friends got their own churches, and how, and then I'm bringing them in here. I'm like, what y'all think about service? They're like, well, it's a little boring. You know what I mean? Because they're
Yeah.
so used to, jumping up and down, and the young people having their way in the service. And here we are, still a traditional Church of God in Christ, Church of God in Christ church. We do everything by the book, and if you try to integrate a little change, not everybody's going to like it.
No.
So the burden having that objective or that job trying to shift the church and you not know how to do it.
well, that's a good. That's a good point, because not even more so of you feel obligated to change, you feel obligated to stay there. What if you don't feel
Right.
like what if you're ready to see something different, like
Yep.
not experience something different, but what if you're ready for something different, but this your church you grew up in forever, how you just gonna leave? That's like,
How do
ugh.
you leave a church that you've been at and that you've invested your time in? How do you do that? Like, how do you make that departure easy?
I moved. Nah, that's not
Real.
why I moved.
Other
Lord,
people
forget.
leave.
No, I don't want nobody to think I moved just to leave my church. Lord Jesus, no, I didn't. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, especially when you've seen other people leave, like if you've been there for a long time and you've seen them leave the ministry, and you kind of made a declaration like, oh, that's not going to be me. Like, I'm never going to leave. I want to make sure that my pastors are good. But then you get to that place where you're getting older and you're like, okay, am I spiritually being fed?
I was just gonna say, is there a possible way to outgrow a ministry? Is it possible to outgrow a ministry?
Definitely.
Wow.
And your
Absolutely.
leader at that church should not be offended by that. That you want to
Absolutely.
leave, like, oh, I don't feel like I'm growing. I feel like I'm stuck, and this is what I want to do. They should not be hurt by that. They should want you to grow, and they should want that for you, and they should be supported in that aspect. That's just tea.
That's on
I
that.
think it's hard for anybody in any position to be told, I'm not, like
That's hard to do.
it's
I would never want to
a
say
hard
that, like,
conversation to have with the leader, right? And it's a hard pill to swallow as the leader for somebody to tell you, oh, like, I feel like I'm in one place under your leadership. Like, I don't feel like I'm growing, whether spiritually or in any aspect. So I wouldn't fault a leader for feeling some type of way. Um, I wouldn't fault a leader for feeling some type of way about a member leaving, but I understand, like, I mean, I do feel like as though they should be understandable. This will probably wrap up our conversation. But what are some main key points to having a successful church going into 2021? Yeah,
investing.
investing.
And that's
Is that
investing.
time or finances? What are we doing?
I mean, if you have the finances, at least invest the time.
Right.
Like I would say last night, when I took over the media aspect of the church, I started doing fundraising. So that was time because we didn't have the money. So started doing fundraising. I started using the free software and little cheaper things to try to get us to a certain place until we were able to raise enough money to start, getting a little higher there when it came to like software or camera equipment or anything like that. But I feel like if you invest in it and you show interest in it, that area will grow with church and either like if you do a department or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
It's all about now taking what the lessons, like even the hits from 2020, and applying that to your 2021. So if you know, most churches should know by now, we're in December, you should know, okay, I need to invest in some equipment. I need to
Right.
invest in some better sound because you got churches that are very loud on Facebook. And if you're on Facebook Live and I can't hear you over the drums or over the musicians, then you need to figure out some type of way to connect the camera to the soundboard. So
Right.
it's all about, and it's really sad to say this, but I'm I'm not, well, I don't think it's sad. It's all about how you want people to see your ministry and how
Mm.
you project your ministry in 2021. So are you okay with just being normal? Are you okay with just being okay with the two or three that you have? Or are you
Right.
looking to evolve your ministry? It's all about what you feel comfortable with. So it's going to take some investment. It's going to take some money. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some fundraisers. There are resources out there for you. Just like you fundraise to pay off your church, you can fundraise to make your church better. So
Uh,
there's several ways to do it. So it's all about the time and the investment and the quality. and what you want for your ministry. So
We said it last night. You cannot want to model after a mega church and then nickel and dime your ministry at the same time. Oh my gosh, I want my live streams to look like, I'm going to keep saying TD Jakes, because his production and his quality, everything is top tier. So you cannot say or try to get that and you're not putting out, whether it's even if it's just the time, like that type of stuff takes time. So anyways, you guys, this has been wanted to get on. Huh?
We leaving?
Well, if you guys have some more questions, I ran out. My book is completely.
No, I think that's a good topic to. I mean, we hit few different topics. Like we literally did stay on one topic, but that wasn't bad.
I don't want to leave the 13 viewers if they're interested in a little bit more of dialogue. And if you are, I want you to comment right now. You only have 2 minutes. Well, you take as
2
long
seconds.
as
Well,
2 seconds. They can't type that fast.
If you guys have any questions or concerns, or even if you identify with what we are talking about, like what's your experience being a millennial, even an adult in the church, and how do you feel about the shift and what's important in 2021? That'll be.
I feel like everybody. Well, maybe everybody should feel like me, but if you are a participant in your church, you want your church to progress. Like you want to see grow, you want to see get better, you want to see new people come in. Once you stop seeing new people come in, that's when you know, okay, something has to change. Something not going right. Something's got to change. We got to figure out what's going on. Because I can't keep seeing the same people. And people need to, members of y'all church, I don't know which camera I'm looking at, y'all need to give to y'all church. Don't say y'all want something change, and you ain't even give it in the offering. You ain't even paying your tithes.
Yeah.
Building fund. Come on. You could at least buy a chicken dinner.
Right.
You can't even buy a chicken dinner, but you want.
Way.
Look, you guys, we have a question from ML Washington. Can you explain the 2021 COGIC transition? I'm not Church of God in Christ yet. I'm interested in understanding the departure of the chief apostle, Bishop Charles Edward Blake.
You right where we are. That's all.
I mean, we had this brief discussion last night. I said it'll be very interesting to see where Church of God in Christ goes 2021, because right now we are in the middle of changing or electing a new leader, right? And so I think this, like I said, this election will be very crucial, because we're looking to go to another level, and which leader will be able to do that is, it's like it's there and on a seesaw right now. So, but what do you think, Sean?
I think that let me read this again. Can you explain the 2020 edition? I'm not COGIC yet. I think that we are living in a season of transition, right? This is one of the most pivotal times in the Church of God in Christ history. We've lost not just the transition of Bishop Charles Edward Blake, but we've lost several general board members. So now there's several appointments that we've never seen before to the general board, which means a fresh start.
Yes.
So that it's turning a new leaf in the Church of God in Christ, something that we didn't expect, because most of these people died in their positions, which means they were not up for retirement. They were not ready to retire. They were not giving, and I can't say if they were not ready because I don't know their conversation, but they were not ready to retire from what they were currently sitting in office. So at that point, it's abrupt. So all of this shift is abrupt. Even Bishop Charles Edward Blake's announcement, it was abrupt. But I respect the transition. I think it holds high esteem, where Bishop Charles Blake is leading by example by saying, guess what? I don't have to die in this position.
Wow.
I can see the legacy of my work and see the transition and pass the mantle to somebody else. Now, whoever that is, the church is going to trust that leader. And I'm not trying to get into the politics, but the church is going to trust that leader because I will call who I want to be our next presiding bishop, but I'm not
Okay.
going to.
Come on.
Period.
But the church is going to have to trust whoever leads us into the next place that God has us. So at the end of the day, after the general board meets, I mean, not the general board, after General Assembly, and they vote in who they desire to be the next presiding bishop, then we have to be okay with that until you can vote again. But the reality is, I think that it's a pivotal time in our church. So I'm excited about that.
I was going to say the exact same words. I'm excited because I feel like the general board, everyone on the general board is pretty not young, but they're they're pretty innovative. So I feel like there's a lot of potential there for people to take us to the next level and progressive more towards the future, but still sticking to the traditions. Nobody on there's like that old that they're not still listening to the younger or looking at other different denominations that is a little more progressive than the coaching church, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm excited to see where it goes because I feel like it's a lot of potential to grow and get more progressive, maybe a little diverse. I feel like the coaching is pretty diverse. We're pretty all over the country. The country, the world.
The world.
The world. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Look, so Lance Pinland says, what do you all feel about engaging people online via Zoom/church apps or other platforms and the importance of that? I'll start off by saying we talked briefly in the beginning, like there was a major shift, right, in 2020 to where most churches had no choice but to get on the social media wave because we couldn't be together. And I think now more than ever, it is essential
Yes.
that you have a social media presence online because, listen, you're not in your church, so your church is social media now. So if you don't have that, not even social media, like just in technology, online in general, if you don't have that, you're on a downfall.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lance Pinland is actually a pastor here in Southern California. He's a young
wow.
pastor. So I think just to piggyback on Lance, and just to say something to him personally, like I've seen his engagement in on social media, and a lot of ministries are not. I think what we do is we get stuck on the fact that, oh, now I got to start a social media page and just go live on that, right? But there's different ways to engage with social media, and I commend Pastor Lance, like their church, their praise team put out a CD or whatever it is. They put out some music. So there's different ways that you engage with, going back to what you said, Deshaun, the departments in your ministry. If there's a music department, put out a live project. If you guys are capable, put out a live project. If you're good enough, put out a live project.
Right.
Go on social media and do a night of worship. If you guys have a Bible study, it's okay to do a Zoom Bible study. You don't have to just do the conference call. If you want to see, your people's faces, the Bible says to forsake not the assembly, in Hebrews. So, some people struggle with that mentally. And I wanted to say that earlier when Erica brought up coming to church and the church just being a building, like we are the church. But some people struggle with stuff mentally that you never think about, like, oh, wow, they got to go home to themselves. So some people look forward to actually assembling and being around people. So don't lose that momentum. Take that to social media. Build your audience on social media. There are several platforms for you. Like, I feel like the church has no excuse. There are several platforms for the church to evolve. Even this StreamYard, Zoom, Switcher Studio. There's several ways for you to advance your ministry, and there's several free ways to do it. Now, however you want to do it with quality and production, that's on you. But there are resources out there for you. And watch this: the biggest resource is Google and YouTube. Go to Google and YouTube and figure out what's best for you in your church, because they have different ways.
Videos.
Been through what you're going through, and you can use or mimic their resources and how they got their stuff together and build your ministry. So I feel like there's no excuse.
Listen, these are just quick questions. Are all of you Church of God in Christ.
Yeah.
Born and raised. Evan says, why didn't we have a virtual convocation in November or something? I think that was always that was a question in my head. I had no idea. I mean, we had a virtual AIM convention. Why not have a virtual national convocation?
So I feel like they would have been so like they're capable of doing that. They could have pulled that off. I'm not sure why they didn't have it. Maybe Bishop knew his decision and he just I don't know what happened. Maybe he didn't want to tax the saints during this time.
I think the problem with the virtual convocation is with AIM. The difference between that is AIM has a chairman, convocation doesn't, right?
Mm.
Also, we're in this middle of a pandemic. Most of these bishops were transitioning. Most of the leaders in the church were passing away. So it's kind of hard to figure out how do I the general board and all of that virtually, but because the convocation is the church on a larger scale versus AIM being departments coming together where you can run and call a department head, but convocation is so tedious. So I think that it would have been horrible. I think that it would have been a very sloppy job for them to have a convocation online match.
Really?
They would come together.
We have to get creative because now we can go anywhere and get it.
You have to get creative because now we can go anywhere and get it.
I agree with that. You see. So I never even knew. I know a few more denominations now because of different social, on Facebook. You scroll through different lives, different convocation people having, and I'm like, I didn't even know there was a apostolic whatever. But you see that more, and it's catering to certain people now, and people are being drawn to what they want. And that's one of the things I feel like Kojic, I don't know if they're stuck in their ways or what, but they don't feel like they want to, they feel like they sinning if they do it this way or what, but that got to change. I feel like that has to change. I know some people are diehard Kojic fans and they're like, no, it's been this way for years, why we got to change it, but I feel like something has to change.
But can we say Church of God in Christ is the best church in the land?
Come on.
I mean, I don't even know politically. I don't know things about. I'm not too political with church because it'll take away the aspect of it all if you weren't about who's in position and everything. Although it is necessary, so I don't really get into the politics. And I don't really know what happens behind closed doors either. But I don't feel everybody. I don't want to get into the conversation, but I do feel as though we have a great church now. Of course, it's always things that we can do better or can be progressed or move forward. But I think we're in a good place and we're ready, but we are ready for higher with the new.
Right. I feel like, don't get me wrong, like our teaching, our standard of holiness and prayer, all that has to stand, but you have to be a little more inclusive. Like if we are like gunshot on the way that we have church, we're not going to attract maybe the people that's next door that's not necessarily the same color as us, that can't sit in church and everybody yelling and running around like they chicken with a head off. Like we can be ourselves, but it'll have to. Sometimes it'll be like unorganized or something. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I know what I want to say, but
it's not coming out. That's okay. All right.
That's we went over an hour. We supposed to only do an hour.
Yes, we did.
We did need younger faces like you all. I'm a young face. I don't know about their faces, but
yeah, everybody always say I look like I'm 18.
Come on, 18. Tell them how old you are, Erica.
No. That's so young.
Any closing remarks?
Yes.
Wind down.
Well, I just want to thank Deshaun for inviting me on today. Like I said previously last night, my Cash App is $Vinegar. Follow me on social media. I have Facebook, Instagram. You can see all my upcoming engagements. I don't have any, but I
Mm,
hear people say that.
really quickly. Church of God in Christ must formally, huh?
That's dangerous.
I'm going to read it out loud because it's on the screen already.
Okay.
God of Christ must formally address women in ministry. Entire national convocation, you might have one female evening speaker. Why is that the case? Because even on a jurisdictional level, you only have one night. You know what I mean? You have a woman's night rather than, and then the other nights will be all male preachers. Is that because,
So you agree with that?
well, I'm curious as to know why is that the
Well,
case?
I feel like that's what
Compared to other denominations where
right.
you're able
That's
to
what
have women elders, but just go ahead, talk on that.
that's what I'm going to say. That I feel like that's one aspect of Kojic Church where they are not as progressive as other churches when it comes to women in ministry and um like accepting women being pastors. It's always you don't really see women pastors in Kojic. And you don't see women ordained as elder, you be a missionary, da da da. I feel like that's one part they need to work on. I don't know if I want to be an elder, but
Some push Women Day to the morning. Go ahead, Sean. It seems like you're itching. Come on.
yeah, come on. I want to hear his
No,
perspective.
I feel as if the Church of God in Christ, and this is no shade or nothing, has done a tremendous job with evolving women in ministry on a national level. Let me say that on a national level. I don't know about everyone's jurisdiction, but on a national level, I feel like the church has progressed. Most of our leaders, and they will never let them be women ministers, elders, or pastors. And that I don't agree with because you're wrong. Because we have women pastors in the Church of God in Christ.
Mm.
They hold on, they're called pastors, and then you have some, watch this, that are called administrative assistants. So you see administrative assistants appointed as pastors of the church if watch their husband has passed away. Okay.
Mhm.
So since my church, and when they see someone who they try to change her title to missionary or evangelist.
Well,
So
when you see what he said, you know what he said. Okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So for instance, my church, my pastor is the superintendent of our district, and our first lady is the supervisor of women of our jurisdiction. So she is our co-pastor, which means basically the assistant pastor. So if something were to happen to my pastor, our first lady will become our leader. So there are women pastors out there, and by appointment as well, supervisors, and that's over the women's department nationally, right, or jurisdictionally, however you want to do. You have administrative assistants, you have female pastors. Now, if you want to have a conversation, we don't have female bishops. That
Oh,
you can challenge me, but we have pastors and we have leaders that are toe and toe, superintendent and supervisors, almost the same thing. So there are female pastors and leaders in the Church of God in Christ. You just don't see them in your jurisdiction.
and I think,
And how long did it take for it to be that way? Because it's certain,
Now,
you know.
okay, I do agree it took a long time, but the Church of God in Christ is not the only denomination struggling with that issue or have been struggling with that issue. The Baptist Church, you don't hear a lot of female pastors in the Baptist Church. You know, most of these female leaders are now starting their own denominations, or rather going non-denominational.
Mhm.
So that's on that. But I think that we have some strong, powerful women in the Church of God in Christ that lead our church dynamically. So I don't know about the
You
whole.
feel, I mean, I think there's a there's still a hesitation with the women in ministry though, right? Because I mean, I think that's what he was trying to say is why is it that women only have one day out of a week where, and then the men is it's still centered around the men in ministry. But
But is that the case?
Of what? What was it? What was
I
said?
think that is the case. It's just like for anything. I feel as though, like, yeah, well, is that not the case? Does that not happen every convocation?
What?
No, because it's not called Women's Day, and then every other night it's called Men's Night. You know what I mean? The women's night or Women's Day, they have Women's Day, and then they have a Men's Day as well.
Well,
But
I think
Men's Day
he.
is every other day.
Well, I think he just said you'll out of the whole week you'll maybe get a woman speaker. You probably won't even get a woman speaker on Women's Night. That's
No, but what we're trying to say is, what we're trying to say is, why is it that women, basically, I think his question was, why is it that women only get one day out of a week to minister? And then, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
some people still not ready to see women in the pulpit. That's on them.
Yes.
That's on them.
I mean, I think that's women, and I feel as if women have a different understanding. I can't speak,
Right.
So if Mother Lewis, speaking on the Church of God in Christ, if Mother Lewis is okay with that one day, then that's on that. But I think he has multiple opportunities. They have workshops, they have services, they have a whole women's convention. So I think the church has been, I don't know if I that statement fully, but because I feel as if there are times now I do agree most of convocation is men speakers, but I feel like maybe the Church of God in Christ use all the women preachers. I mean, it's not a lot of women preachers out there.
It's a lot, but they are probably not known now.
They're probably not Kojic.
Well, I don't know.
Anyway, that's all y'all.
Names.
We almost on 1:15.
Well, they asked us questions, Erica, so we had to answer them.
Oh, any more questions? Well, let me not ask that. This is a Deshaun show.
No, I just
a guess. Now, I hope that answered their question. I feel like Koji could be a little more progressive when it comes to accepting women.
There's no specific conversation. Just whatever you say, we're really expounding on some of the comments that people are leaving. Okay. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be pushback for certain things or whatever the case may be. But I think we're on our way.
Mm-hmm.
We're on our way. Do you guys have any questions you want to bring to our audience? Or are you guys settled?
I'm pretty settled. I mean, if you guys have any questions regarding women in ministry, or how you feel about women in ministry in any denomination, you can comment. But
and then that's a good point. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I literally was watching a panelist of women preachers, and they were talking about how people over here in the United States expect women to preach like men. Do you think that happens? You see that? They want you to be like, no, that's not what I'm fit to get up there and do. Like, I can tune up a little bit, but I'm not fit to preach like the guys preach. That's all, y'all.
So there's a gender there's like women preaching and men preaching.
Yeah, no, like what?
I feel like,
I get the different styles between.
Yeah.
You know how? Okay, so coming from like a black church, men, most of them like hoop, right? So they hollering, they hooping. Some women feel like, in order for me to get the same interaction as this man, I got to do the same thing. So Latrice Ryan, she's a woman preacher, and she said, no, not Latrice Ryan, Joyce Rogers. They call her Evangelist Joyce Rogers. They call her the feminine warrior, right? Because you don't have to be masculine to get your point across. You don't have to, stump and do all the things that the men do in order for you to get your point across. You could be feminine and you can still preach like a lady. That's okay. So I don't think, but at the same time, some women feel like they got to protect their platform, or they got to project this platform as, I can do just as good as him. That's like in the work field where some people are lower paid based off of a man. A man gets paid higher than a woman. They feel like, oh, I can do the work better than them, so I'm gonna show you that I can holler like him, I can sing like him, I can hoop like him. So my question to you, Erica or Deshaun, is do you feel as if that compromises their platform or pushes them away, like, oh, she's doing too much because she's trying to be like so and so?
Like this, like from our point of view, looking at them.
Yeah, like, do you feel as if, oh, she's trying to preach like a man? Like, what does that look like? What does trying to preach like a man look like?
I don't know. Go ahead.
So I want to acknowledge my chairlady Deborah Leffridge says, I believe we are evolving. Sometimes women think they must be masculine in their delivery in order to be anointed. Not true. Totally agree with that statement. Okay. I feel like, I guess now that we're having a conversation, I never realized, or it never really processed in my head that this lady is trying to preach like a man. I just always, when I think somebody's preaching, I'm like, you better preach regardless of what kind of style. So I guess that do make sense. But in my experience, I've never looked at a lady and said, no, you need to sit down, like you're doing too much. Because I never looked at her like that. I was just like, you better tear it up like that. So I don't know. It's different.
I guess
I look back at Erica, I'm like, she preaching, like, I don't know. I don't know. Go ahead, Erica.
What attracts me, like anybody that, I don't know if, I want to say anybody that knows me knows I love a good woman preacher. Like I literally have a few women preachers, like I'll just sit next to them if I could every day. That's Vanessa Macklin, Ruby Holland Hutchins, and Joyce Rogers. I feel like like me personally, I don't care who you are. If you get up there doing too much, me personally, I'll be like, no, I don't, that's not, no, it don't have to be, it'll be like, it's not even a woman or a man. If you doing too much, or if you too theatrical, even with people, like, you know how certain people know how to use their words good? You can tell they went to theologian school, so they use big words, but when you're doing it too much, like, it's unnecessary. I'll be like, okay, no.
Right.
I really get irritated. But it's not like I put pressure on a woman to deliver a certain way. I feel like if you know what, like, if you explain it good and you know, Dorinda good too, but
decency is decency. All I gotta say is when she gets up, you're going to go to the kingdom, okay? She's going to take you right to the throne. Now, whether you talk to the Lord or not, that's on you, but she's going to take you, okay?
See, now I don't know if people get caught up in the way she delivers. If her runs, the way she deliver her good, like do her little, you know how she preaches, sing at the same time, and people be caught up in that, if they even listening to what she really saying.
Erica, they don't like that.
I feel like any person that is really delivering, like if they're really preaching the word and you know what you're getting, what they're talking about, I don't care how you deliver. If I can understand what you're saying and this is the truth, I'll get it with you. You don't have to be yelling, you don't have to be screaming, grabbing your ear. Even if you talking good, then that's me personally.
Know how you feel. We want to know what the face was for. Kingdom, yes, she'll take you there.
I mean, because some people get caught up, and this is no shade to anybody, because I love Dorinda. Evangelist Cole. The problem is some people get caught up in the personality. Oh my God, it's Dorinda, and she's gonna sing me down, like, you know. So the reality is, she can get up there and preach about the ABCs, and it makes no sense. You just like how she sounds and who she is, and I think that's the problem with some of us in this generation, is that we're so caught up in the personality and not really listening to what's behind the message or the picture. I don't know.
Which will go back to our question earlier about that line between theatrics or the real authentic anointing or different authentic experience that these churches are projecting.
See, and I don't like that church stupid stuff. Preach, teach, then hoop. Because some people don't hoop, and that's okay. Like, if you're a teacher, teach. Like, don't. If you're anointed, God's going to anoint you to do what you're anointed to do, to minister to the people that are called to you. Like, I think that the problem is this generation pulls on the like you said, pulls on the. If you don't hoop, you didn't preach.
Right.
That's jargon. If you didn't make a shout, if we didn't have a praise break, there was no glory there. That's ridiculous. And you need to grow up and you need to figure out who Jesus is. Like, he was not having a praise break in the Garden of Eden. So don't. Like, the reality is we really need to figure out where we are as the church. And that's what really makes me upset. And this is no shade to you, whoever you are, Cameron. But the reality is that shows the ignorance of this generation. Like, you only want the theatrics. You only want the praise break. You only want to roll on the floor and then get up and do the same thing over and over again. Like, no, grow up, figure out who Jesus Christ is to you. And it's okay if people come and teach. Like, you need to actually listen. You need to hear the word of God. Like, let that meditate in your spirit. Like, you don't always have to get the screaming, and they don't always have to sing. Like, if the preacher don't sing, he didn't do good. No, that's not the case.
I feel
I like her.
Yes. I love Cheerleader. We prioritize praise breaks over chain breaks. Literally, that'll preach anywhere, right? So, like, listen, that's true. Like, I like what my pastor does. So, like, my pastor, anybody know Pastor Macklin, he will preach you under a pew, right? But he also give a disclaimer. Like, some Sundays he'll be like, now if I don't make y'all shout today, don't be mad at me. You know, like, if I just want to talk to y'all, and I just want to teach y'all. And to me, I like low-key love, you know, like, I love those sermons more than him hooping it or whooping or whatever. But because, like, you actually understand what he's saying and he's talking to you on a personal level, coming from his experience, right? People love anybody that's relatable. And I think that's why I think I mentioned it last night. A lot of my friends like, oh, I don't like to go to churches where the preacher is yelling at you, because sometimes that message don't get across. Why you're yelling and why you grabbing your ear and leaning back and stuff, because we don't know what you're saying. You're out of breath, and so now
you spit all on the mics.
Right, now we gotta sanitize them.
You too close, you be like, what?
So it's just like, I think sometimes, I mean, we have to normalize teaching and putting it in the category as preaching. I often say, I mean, I've only spoken a few times, and I always say, they were like, oh, you preached before? I don't know. I just be like, I don't preach, but I feel like I can, you know, give you a little lesson. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's so different.
But it depends on that's the conversation that me and you had, Deshaun, when we were talking about you speaking a few times, and you was like, I don't know if it was preaching. I was like, no, it's preaching. The problem is we put preaching with hooping. Like, if you didn't hoop, you didn't preach. No, if you're talking about Jesus, to preach means to talk about the gospel of Jesus, the good news. So if you're even talking, if you're having a conversation, you know, you're preaching. Like, but the reality is we make our own definitions, Black people, for what we want it to be. So that's on that. I don't know.
That's up now. No, that I feel like it's just all about your relationship and what you want from whatever church or ministry you're a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're looking for when you go to that church. Some people like the traditional. Some people love the traditional. They don't want it to change. They want to stay the way they said, and that's on you. But if you as the leader or you as the member, you want to see progressiveness, you want to see different people in your church, you're going to have to maybe make a little adjustments. And it's not hard to ask the people what they're looking for. Good morning, Saturday meeting, and take a poll. It's okay, and ask them what they're looking for in the church, especially if you're trying to grow and get bigger.
Right.
I like that. I like what you said, to having somebody, a leader. Were you talking about a leader asking his members what they want or what they're looking for? And I think that's okay. I feel like sometimes leaders think if I ask my members what they want to do, then they won't feel like I'm being a great leader, right? But I feel, I mean, honestly, I definitely love giving my input on things, but you know, sometimes input isn't always necessary, especially when it's not asked for. So I feel like if our leaders will, you know, start opening their ears up a little bit more to everybody's opinion and not just their board of trustees because you know the board of trustees is seasoned, so they don't have the opinion from a millennial. So I don't know, you just your ears need to be open to different types of opinions. Love that. Yes. Wow. Isn't it great to have a conversation? Authentic conversation. And nobody's opinion has been shot down because we're so open to every single thing that's been said. Unless you're bashing somebody. But yes, I don't know. The members are important, just as important as a ministerial staff.
Yes. No one person runs the church.
Mhm.
No one person runs the
Without
church.
the members, you'll have no church.
That's right.
We gonna preach
It's a
the
body,
pews.
literally. It's a body. You have to think of a body. Like your members are pretty much your arms and your legs, and your ministerial staff maybe, you know, your abdomen area, and the leader's the head, right? So it's just like nothing works without the other part. You don't have the legs connected, you know what I'm saying? So it's a body, literally. But wait, question. How do you all feel about ministerial staff being paid? How do you feel about things being paid in the church in general? No, well, yeah, let's just keep it general. I don't want to specify any specific.
Oh man, that's a good question. And I don't know. I'm torn on that one.
Me too.
I'm not. I
want
think
our viewers to put their opinions in. How do you feel about people being paid at the church to do what they do at the church? Go ahead, Sean.
I think that if you can outsource, you can insource. That's my thing.
Can you break that down, just in case people don't understand what you're saying?
Say that one more time.
Can you break it down just in case people didn't understand that statement you made?
That's what he's.
I was about to do that.
Sorry.
So if you can call a camera operator and pay outside of your church ministry and pay them $500, and you got somebody capable to do the same thing as a camera operator inside of your ministry, why not bless them to do the work? And they actually belong to the ministry, which means that they know what's best for the ministry, right? So I think that if you can outsource, you can insource. And the problem is most of the ministries just like favors. So if you're not doing them a favor, or if it's not just a pat on the back, then I'd rather just go to somebody else because I'm too stubborn to pay you. And we got to really get out of that, because if I'm doing quality work, if I'm staying up all night, if I'm making sure my ministry looks good, not just my ministry, but you as my pastor, if I make sure that you look good, then it's okay to get a seed token. You get one every year during your anniversary service. Why you can't just bless me? You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. And it's not, it doesn't become a job, because that's what I don't like. I don't like when it becomes a job. Because if it's a job, you wake up every morning and say, dang, I got to go to church and do this. You have no passion in it anymore. It's just a check. Right. So when you have ambition and a drive to actually transform the ministry and receive a love token, not a paycheck, receive a seed for your token of appreciation, whether that's every Sunday, once a month, whatever it is, that's fine. I don't see a problem with that, because it's encouraging me to continue doing what I'm doing. And it's giving me the better resources. If I have to invest in something myself, you are helping me invest in, let's forget about the free software. You've been paying me. I've probably been saving up a little bit, and I can bless the church with something. You know what I mean? So, hey.
Erica, you say you were torn on this topic.
The reason I feel like I'm torn is because it's just from my perspective. Like, I grew up in the church, so I was always there helping, doing anything that I did, whatever I did. If I was playing drums, if I was opening up the church, if I was running the sound or whatever, I never looked for myself to get paid or anything. And that's what I feel like I don't like when people, like, you're in this role because you're getting paid to do it. Like, you know, like when people first started preaching, they didn't charge. You didn't get paid to come and preach, but you know, like people on the radio was like skyrocket, like off the roof, like the gospel is free. So why are you charging us this much? Like you can't pay for that, or why you up here buy the light bulb and you bringing the receipt to the the finance committee, like stuff like that. Like so, it's just I feel like people who tax the church in a way of like, oh, y'all gotta pay me for this, or that way it's kind of like that's how I feel. Like, of course, if you're willing to pay somebody and you have a member that's there, you should be fair and pay them that much. But I don't feel like people should do stuff in church to get paid. If that, I don't know
And you
if
feel
that
as
makes
though
sense,
most
but
people should start off helping the church by just authentically and like genuinely helping them, and then if the payment comes along, that'll be okay.
right, like
To go
so,
seek
like
out a job at the church is
like
not.
that guy, somebody put in the comment like praise and worship leaders. Like, okay, your musicians get paid now, but like you have a praise and worship leader that's getting paid on the books. Like I don't even know if they're really coming to lead me into worship or if they coming to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's what questionable to me. When you have ministerial staff that's on like some churches, mostly the Caucasian church, you have your list of the children's church pastor, the arts pastor, and they're on payroll. They come in during the week. They do this, da 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 da. That's that's on y'all. I don't want to, talk about anybody ministry yet. So if you feel like you're in a place to pay people, I guess. But it's just like you doing the work for the Lord. You don't need to get paid. Like He wake you up every morning. So that's all y'all. If y'all
We
want to
love
get
it.
paid,
We love everybody's opinion. I feel as though, I think it. I don't know. I mean, like, I think like for me, like when I started off when the beginning of the pandemic in March, and like I was started to do things at the church, helping out to make sure our church stayed afloat, and then start getting blessed with a love token and X, Y, and Z. Not that I was asking for, but because I believe the church felt like, in their heart to bless me, right? I mean, is it bad? I mean, I think is it bad that I'm receiving that?
see, that's where I'm torn. I don't feel like you were doing that to get that, or I don't know. I feel
Am
like
I bad
certain
to receive that,
ministries
Sean?
do, huh? Oh.
I'm asking Sean, am I bad to take that love token?
I think that's personal conviction. I
Mm,
think that if you feel as if, like for me, I'm gonna speak on my part and then tie it into you because I've seen you and Erica work personally, for your church. But the reality is, for on my end, growing up in church, I was like, okay, I'm doing this because I have a heart to do it, and because first of all, I'm being asked to do it, and I can't say no. You know what I mean?
right.
So when you see this generation and just how church is now, where everybody is wanting a check, you like,
Mhm.
dang, like I was doing this, and it's not jealousy or nothing, but it's like, dang, I was doing this, and y'all was not even paying me. You
Come
know
on,
what I
Right.
that's
mean?
what I'm saying.
So now the problem is, if your church sees the quality, Deshaun and Erica, this is where I'm answering your question, Deshaun. If the church sees the quality of work that you do and they feel as if you deserve,
Right.
I didn't ask for it, but if you give it to me and you feel like I deserve it, I'm not going to say no. But if I do see my church struggling, or if I feel like you could be investing this in something else, I'm still not going to say no. But I'm joking. No, I'm going to say no. Um, but some people, I think the thing that you have to think about is, Deshaun,
Mhm.
are you getting, and this is rhetorical, it's not directly to you, but
Right.
are you getting paid from your church because they feel as if they don't pay you, you won't stay?
Mm-hmm.
Or if they don't pay or give you something, the quality of work that you do won't be as good,
Mm-hmm.
So you have to decipher, are they paying me to keep my seat warm,
or are they paying me because I'm their safety net?
Right.
So that's what you have to think about. Like, I don't know. Like, if I give you this little 150, you know, you're gonna be content versus me actually having to. Because the reality is, they not even paying some of us the amount that they can really pay us. You know, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, you giving me 150, but the job that I did was really worth $2,000 in the outside world. But because you know I'm going to be content with whatever you give me, here's this. So now it becomes, is it manipulation to me?
Right. But I think that, and then that goes into the conversation of like, well, now you're starting to do this because you're expecting a certain amount. I don't know, you guys. I mean, it's a conversation that I think falls on you personally, like how you feel about it. And like you said, if you started off not getting paid and they start to pay you with the little love token, you know, be grateful for the love token. But I also feel I want to give a perspective for the person that is getting paid and you know, helping the ministry out. You also never ever want to take advantage.
That's that.
It's intentional or unintentional. You never want to take advantage of, oh yes, this person is a member at our church, so this will be just enough. You know, always or doing the bare minimum to keep that person happy or to keep that person there. Because in reality, especially now, whatever the job is, if someone's offering what is due for that specific job or position, nobody has any problem leaving your ministry. Because if they feel like they're been underappreciated, everything is always their name is getting overlooked publicly, but they're doing everything behind the scenes, it makes them reevaluate certain things. Like, no, like you start to feel used and, you know, different things, because not like you're doing it to be pushed in the front, but to hear your name every once in a while or to get the appreciation that is due would be great, right? Erica, do you ever, I mean, I don't want to put you on forefront, but have you ever been in a position where you felt like you were taken advantage of outside of the ministry? It does not have to be in a ministry. I want to give a perspective of being taken advantage of.
Okay. I mean, of course, like that happens often, even if it's in your workplace, in your family. Just be it, if you're a giving person or you a person that always want to help and you want to see either people get better or whatever get better, you put forth more effort than you receive recognition or appreciation for. And that's just, sometimes it's just inevitable. Like if that's who you are, that's how it's gonna be. But at some point it's gonna take a toll on you where you have to, you know, make a decision like, am I going to take care of me, or if I'm just going to risk myself for the well-being of others or whatever I'm doing. But I liked his point earlier. What was it when we talk about musicians? Like, it's crazy how like people don't do stuff unless they get it paid. That's crazy to me.
No,
like
no,
literally.
I mean, yeah.
But that's just the day and time we live in. Like,
I mean, but do you also feel as though it depends on what? I mean, because some people do ministry full time, right? So they're living through ministry. So is that okay to decline something?
I think that, and I'm gonna just go scripture real quick. I think that Jesus found all his disciples working, right? They were found. The key word is they were found working. So I consider it like almost an all-star team. So the reality is, Deshaun and Erica, if the church decided to bless you, they're not asking you to come on the job already. You were already on the job. You know, so now it's them asking, oh, well, is it okay if we just give you this, you know, every now and then? And however you receive that, that's how you receive that. Now, my problem is when we have those Judas experiences where it's like, well, the church is paying me, but they're not paying me enough. They're not giving me enough. I need more. You know, now you became hungry off of something that they were blessing you with. So I think that's where you have to really examine yourself and say, I didn't ask them or I didn't go to them for a check. They came to me. Let me be content with this.
Right.
Now, how long you feel, your relationship with your pastor or your relationship with your ministry is your relationship. And you only understand if you feel like you're being manipulated or not. That's your personal conviction. And that, when you are being used.
Right.
And that's a conversation. If you feel as if, well, I have a relationship with my pastor, I have a relationship with this ministry, I have a longevity with this ministry, and it's a hard conversation. That's a hard conversation when you have to go to your leader and say, I don't know if this is right, or I don't feel okay with this. Then you're stuck in a place between, do I ask for more or do I decline everything? You know what I mean? Do I walk away from it all? So I think that's the reality, that this generation is facing. But also when you being money hungry, you can do the job. It's okay to show up an hour early and clean the church without you asking for $100. It's okay to bless your ministry. It's okay to work the camera every now and then. You don't come on.
Yeah, I think some things are. Come on, I think it, and then it comes down to the type of person that you are. You mean to tell me, you mean to tell me you can't just come to the church? This is a quick prayer service, and I need you to be on piano just in case I do a tune, and you want $175 while you come in and get the prayer your own self. So this should be just you being there and just getting prayer and helping out. But everybody's different. Like I said, it depends on your arrangement and what you get.
But that also gets complicated if the person that's in that position are they a member of their church or are they on salary? So when you call someone that say, oh, we have a prayer meeting, you go be here. Are you asked me to come work? Because I'm not a member of your church, so.
Right.
That's good.
But that's something a whole different story.
Yeah, they on payroll, but they're not on the church roll.
Right.
Okay. So that's nice, guys.
That was good, guys, right? We done.
Oh, Erica.
We almost 2 hours. Kiana has been waiting for me.
Okay. So if nobody has anything else to mention, whether it be an experience about anything that we said today, I almost said tonight, anything we said today or anything. Oh, dang. Hold on, you guys.
What?
I just wanted to show our scrolling banner. Old school versus new school. That's not even what we end up talking about, but nevertheless, you guys, we appreciate everybody so much. Yes, thank you. We have our banner scrolling. All right. I'll try to give you guys a little time if y'all wanted to send anything in. I don't see anything coming in.
Oh, like questions?
Yeah, just anything before we got off.
Well, I could hit with, I love good tradition, but I don't want it to be the same. I want it to be a little mixture of both. That's what I'm looking for nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And moving a whole nother state, I had to try to find a new church. So that's what I was looking for when I was looking for a new church. I think I said that already, but when I was there, at Sweet Home, I tried to do my best to, bring any insight I could to, the church. Even though before the pandemic, we had just bought a new computer, a couple of new laptops, that new camera was new.
Mm-hmm.
But it was hard to, put in effect if you don't have the right amount of people to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm gonna say about that. I was going to say something else, but I forgot I mentioned my church. I hope nobody come back and watch this.
Oh my god.
Are you gonna delete this?
No, I'm not.
Anyways,
As
but
we
yeah,
try
that's
guys,
what I'm looking for. I don't think it's no
what are
old
you looking
school
for?
versus
I didn't understand.
new school, huh?
What were you looking for?
That I like to say tradition. I want to feel like I'm not wearing pants to church. That's just me. Like you can wear your pants, but I'll still wear my skirt to church.
She does.
But still, I don't want it to be like everybody wearing skirts down to your knees. Like I want the diversity there. Like if the pastor allows people to wear it, it's not too much gun hold on what people are wearing, how people are living, but it's a free space to come and worship, and it's a different type of worship. It's not just call and response songs. It's not just churchy choir songs, but it's a good diverse. That's what I'm looking for in a church.
Yes. Go ahead, Sean. Say something.
I agree. I think that going into 2021, that the church has to just figure out what's best. Individual churches have to figure out what's best for them and their ministries, but be prepared, be awakened that we are in a culture shift, a social shift at that. So it's okay to hold true to traditional values, but it's also okay to embrace what's new and what's happening, and probably best to intertwine that in your ministry, because you can pull on the younger people, and you can still bless the older people. So not forsaking the past, but embracing the present as well. So I think that that's the importance, and we'll win way more people if we are not divided, because they say the church is the most divided place. And if we are not divided and come together and listen, I think that's the thing that we need to do. Listen to one another, and not just defend our truth, but pay attention and listen to somebody else that might have an idea, somebody that might have something that will help innovate your ministry. So it could be right in front of you and you don't even know it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all. And I'll start my closing statement with what Chairlady Deborah says. Traditional builds a great foundation. Relevancy will captivate us into the future. We need them both. Wow. So thank everybody that came through this live. Thank you to my two panelists that joined me. And we are looking for so much more, so much bigger for the state of the church conversation. Like I stated in the beginning, this is the beginning of a series as we close 2020. And so, yes, thank you all so much. And tradition builds, let me read it again. Traditional builds a great foundation. Relevancy will captivate us into the future. Thank you all so much. And stay tuned. We will be back.